to Soccer Saturday with me, Jordy Pete Redding. What a weekend in store, by the way. Regulars of White Hart Lane can expect energy, effort and brute strength this weekend. Sadly for Spurs fans, I'm referring to the boxing. Spurs are away tomorrow. Yes, it's Soccer Saturday with me, Jordy Pete Redding, Hollywood Balls, of course, partnered by the wonderful TFA. And later on in the show, DK's hot sauce, because the reason I'm laughing is you'll see when it comes to predictions. But before we find out what's on the show and meet our guest, I've got to give a special mention on the theme of boxing to probably our youngest viewer, guys. He's 11-year-old Geordie by the name of Oliver Gallagher, and he made his boxing debut on behalf of Dunstan Amateur Boxing Club last night. So, Oliver, welcome along to the show again. Great to have you with us. Keep going. Don't listen to your dad because he doesn't know what he's talking about. We at Hollywood Balls will follow you, and all the very best to you. Great story, that. 11 years.
Good luck, Oliver. Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming up today, we've got two huge game previews because it's Chelsea Man City and, of course, it's North London Derby weekend. Got its own hashtag on Twitter, by the way, as have we. Also featured, we're going to be taking a look at Brentford, Leeds, West Ham, Everton and Norwich, and a conundrum for Patrick Vieira, friend of Super Kev, at Palace this weekend, as well as Baller of the Week and, of course, the DK Hot Sauce Challenge. Right, good morning. But first, let's meet today's guest as I launch into another intro, because it's a big one, by the way. CEO for Lewes FC, a background in anti-corruption, anti-money laundering, held a human rights role at Amnesty International. She's played a part in numerous Guinness World Records, has lived, worked and played football in UK, Germany, the French West Indies, the Netherlands, Rwanda, Senegal and Tanzania. That's me done. Welcome to Hollywood Balls, Maggie Murphy.
Thanks so much. Lovely to be here. I think this is going to be fun.
It's certainly going to be fun because let's get a little bit of housekeeping out the way first. Off air, we learned, and I think it's only fair, it is North London Derby weekend. It's a massive game for Spurs as well as Arsenal, who are at home. George has help in the house today. I'm staying neutral, obviously, but Maggie, in her spare time, she has her beloved number one, obviously, which is Lewes FC, which we'll get onto, but has a sneaky passion for Spurs. Am I right?
That's right. But I am a cynical Spurs fan. I'm someone that doesn't want too much. Like, I don't ask for too much. Anything will do for me. So.
And good job. I believe your partner's. He shares my pain, doesn't he?
He's a Newcastle fan. Yeah, so the two of us are generally a little bit depressed. And
I bet that's a house full of joy. I tell you what. Jeez,
you squeeze out a 1-0 win and you're like, this is great. What a great day.
It's as good as it gets. And speaking of that, I've got to give a special mention because it's a huge sporting weekend, obviously, at White Hart Lane tonight. The main man is fighting, so we wish him well. That's going to be amazing. And also on the world stage, it's the Ryder Cup. Myself and my father were really looking forward to that yesterday. That lasted all of about an hour. Anyway, coming back to our guest, I've got to ask you, Maggie, did your passion for football, did it start at a young age?
Yeah, I mean, from growing up, I was always out in the garden. I've got 3 brothers. I was desperate to, kick a ball around. I didn't like netball. I wanted to get stuck in. I wanted to be climbing trees. I just everything felt so constrained in kind of the girl sports, and I just wanted to kind of sliding tackles were my passion.
Brilliant. Did you have the grass stain on the knee, on the right knee?
Yeah, my mum wasn't impressed. She tried to take me to ballet classes, but that didn't work out.
No, that wasn't happening. It sounds it. I mean, speaking about, you say that netball and whatnot frustrated you, but in your life now, football frustrated you as well. You said that you documented as saying the constant challenges that you faced, right?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, there weren't any girls' football teams. So even though I loved it in the garden, there was no outlet for me. I ended up playing for a team. My very first team that I played for, I was 13 years old playing in adult football because that was my only opportunity. And it's just like constant. You always got the bad referee if they turned up at all. You always got a really terrible pitch. The grass was this high, divots everywhere. You were always given like really bad coaches if you got a coach at all. It was kind of like you were always a second thought, if you were thought of at all. So it was a constant set of daily challenges. But when you're playing football, you just want to play. You just want to get out there and you're just trying to get there. And so it takes a long time for all of those daily frustrations to build up until at one point you kind of like pop and you're like, that's it. We've got to sort this out.
Right.
That was my experience going through it.
Okay. Staying on football, Kev, I'm going to come to you and then George straight after. Massive game straight after this show between arguably the two favourites, isn't it? Tuchel's got a little bit of the sign over our Pep at the moment. Stating the obvious, though, City do need a win, don't they? Or not to get beat.
Yeah, listen, anytime you go away from home against one of your rivals, the key is not to lose. But I particularly think in this game, it's one that Manchester City won their last season, although Tuchel wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think this is marker time. Chelsea want to win this one to lay down the marker against the current champions. The current champions, Pep Guardiola, is going to want to get one over on Tuchel. Last season, Tuchel beat them twice, didn't he? Probably the biggest game was the Champions League final. So it's going to be a hell of a tussle. But, with Chelsea, with Lukaku, it's going to be a tough one for City.
George, coming to you at Chelsea. I know you share you're very fair. Let me put it that way. For a London fan and a Spurs boy, you're very fair to all of the other London sides. But Chelsea, I know that you'll be rooting for City, but Chelsea are actually going for 4 straight wins against City.
Yeah.
Can the light blues stop the rot?
Well, I look. Chelsea clearly has momentum. It has more momentum than any other big club. TT has worked magic there.
Yep.
The rhythm, the defence, going forward. I only see one club winning the Premier League this season, unfortunately, and I do think it's Chelsea, right? I think El Clasico today. I don't see Chelsea losing. I think City will actually struggle to score against Chelsea, and I've got it as a Chelsea win. And frankly, if I was a Chelsea fan and if I was an honest fan, I would feel very confident about today. Strange, huh?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you never write Pep off. He has, our friends in the media have sort of made a bit of a meal, I would say, this week about him arguing with fans. What he did, he's made a comment, and he's asking the fans to get behind him, and I think he's all right to do that.
Yeah, it's not so much about Pep. In fairness, again, I almost resent Chelsea and City a little bit because of the unlimited cash, right? It's unfair playing ground, but still, it's not the fans' fault, right? But it's not so much about Pep. It's just more about TT and Chelsea. I think they're on fire. They're on absolute fire, and I think they're the best team in Europe. And I see one outcome, and fair play to them. God, I wish it was Spurs. Dear me.
We say it's an equal playing field today, and there's a high possibility of a draw. Speaking of equal playing fields, Maggie, going to come back to you. I've been dying to know about this, and I think I know a little bit about it. The equal playing field and a football match at the highest altitude in the world.
Yeah, 2017. It was on the back of getting a little bit frustrated around some of the issues around women's football globally. Sure. It's on the back of the FIFA corruption scandal. I was just really peeved, let's say.
Yep.
And there was lots of women around the world that also felt similarly. So there was a group of us, about 30 women, 20 different countries. We had a former US player. We had a former England player come with us, as well as some grassroots players from Saudi Arabia, Nepal, Australia. So we took 6-7 days to climb to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And there we laid a full-size pitch and played a full 90-minute match. It was a terrible game. It was 0-0. I missed a 1-on-1. I try and forget that, but I can't get it out. I think about it all the time. But yeah, we still got the Guinness World Records to this day. I think there was another group that tried to beat us, but they didn't manage. They had to flee back down the mountain because the altitude sickness can get to you.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, and I'm sure it came from a journalist who may have been a part of that, Ben Jacobs.
That's right.
Yeah, Ben and I know Ben from his time in Dubai, mad Leicester City fan. So I knew that Ben was involved somehow. But that game was a symbol, wasn't it? 30 women from 20 countries, by the way, coming together to promote equality and respect in the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what was really key for us was to show that this was a group of players who were grassroots and elite, and they were players from all around the world. We had a player that was 15, 16, as well as a woman that was, I can't remember how old she was, maybe 50 or so. So it was trying to show that it didn't matter whether you were in the US, in what we believe to be one of the best places for women's soccer, or in Nepal.
Right.
Everyone was looking for opportunity, equality, respect. And it was the same kind of issues. Of course, the degree of severity was different, but all of us were coming together trying to figure out a way that we could support each other. And we still have those brilliant networks to this day. We've got a few more Guinness World Records under our belts as well. And we're still, collaborating and sharing expertise and just supporting each other.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
What was it like playing at that altitude, Maggie?
Okay, so you could hardly breathe. I've got asthma as well, so I don't. It was really strange. The actual surface, you're in the volcanic crater, so it's like volcanic ash. So it's like a beach football, but worse because you just can't really run. And then you can't really breathe. So you're in your mind, you think you can make a ball, right? Someone, somehow a ball comes through. You're like, yeah, I've got this, and then you're like, you get the ball.
Your legs are like lead.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, well, what do I do now? I've got to the ball. Need to take a second.
I know. Wow.
So yeah, it was a nuts game. There's bits and pieces online. And it's quite fun. There was a documentary. So Ben Jacobs with Bein Sports, they put a documentary together, which I think is still online, and you can really see that we're struggling. I mean, 0-0 after all that effort.
Got to ask you, did Ben struggle at that altitude? Because it must have kept him quiet for a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think the thing was that you couldn't tell who was going to be affected. I was really worried because I've got asthma, and actually, I fared better than most, so maybe my lungs are used to it. But yeah, some of the others, like some of the elite athletes, they found it really difficult up there. So it was really interesting. No one could tell who was going to be badly affected, and a couple of the players didn't make it right up to the very top. That's the severity. And there was like a seriousness to it as well. We had to have a doctor from NATO with us because there are people that die every year on the mountains. So we had to be careful about what we were doing as well.
Unbelievable. We're going to come back to you.
Great cause.
Yeah,
Pete.
Absolutely. We'll come back to you because we're going to be focusing a bit about Lewes, both women and men, because they're both in action this weekend. Looking forward to catching up about that as well. Okay, with my boxing theme in mind, gentlemen, it is North London Derby weekend, but I'm after a good clean fight, so I'm the referee today, obviously. We're going to start with the home side. We're going to start with Kev. Now, one stat I can't ignore, and I know what you're going to say to me, but I'm going to get this stat in anyway. The Gunners are unbeaten at home in their last 10 Premier League games against Spurs. And I know I can hear the echo. It's about to start. It's a derby game. I'm well aware of that, but it's a decent stat to go into, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Pete. I'm not going to give you the tried and tested today.
Yeah.
Because you expect me to say it's a derby and the form goes out the window. I know that's what you expected me to say. For me, I think it's a really important game for both teams.
Sure.
I think there's new players on both sets of sides. So I'm going to deal with the new players on Arsenal side. I'm sure George and Maggie will deal with the players on Spurs side.
Yeah.
This is another point of proving ground for Arsenal to try and get their season back on track. It's really important game. It's against our biggest rivals. And for some of these players who have never played in a North London derby before, this is an eye-opener because the fans are going to be in, the Spurs away fans are going to be in, and the atmosphere is going to be electric. So, with that pressure on you, we're going to see if they can perform. And fingers crossed, touch wood and all that, we win the game because I don't want to draw. I want to win.
Kev, before I come to George and Maggie, though, I just want to say this game's come round at the right time because maybe take it back a couple of weeks ago, Arsenal, the fans, and I mean the fans as well, they wouldn't have fancied this, but they'll be looking forward to this because Spurs aren't having a great time at the minute. Well,
it's amazing how the form has flipped. 2-3 weeks ago, we were bottom of the table after 3 games, no points, no goals, no nothing. We hadn't won a game, barring the cup. And Spurs were top of the league, hadn't conceded a goal, were flying.
Yeah.
And now, Spurs have been beaten in the last 2 league games, 3-0 and 3-0. And we've won 1-0 and 1-0. So here we go. We clash at the Emirates. It's going to be a really interesting game. One that I'm looking forward to.
Couple of Georgie Grahams in there for Arsenal. Couple of 1-0s. Your old gaffer, George. Nuno's actually got a decent record against Arsenal from Wolves. So what's your take on this weekend's game?
Listen, life is always about context, right? You can't ignore context. When
the voice of reason speaks.
Yeah, listen, when Arsenal was struggling, I was the first one to say people overreacting.
Yeah.
Thomas Partey was out injured. He's a great player for Arsenal. Yeah. Gabriel was injured. He's a great player. They come back, and what happens? Oh, they're getting some results. And there's confidence in the Arsenal team now, right? Imagine that. Who could have predicted that? We know that, right? So I think both teams are in a process of transition and evolving. Okay. I think Arsenal is more progressed than Spurs in that transition because they've been at it longer. And Spurs have got a new manager, new players. So candidly, and I'm going to vomit now, you've got to give Arsenal the edge, right? But you never know. It is a derby.
Yep.
You have to compete in a derby. You owe it to the fans. You owe it to the club. 22 players on that pitch have to compete. And if they compete 100%, it could be a really interesting game. Mm-hmm. And it could be a great spectacle for football fans if you're not an Arsenal fan or a Spurs fan. Because if you're a Spurs fan or Arsenal fan, you watch that game, you're dying every minute. I don't care. Even if you're 2-0 up, you're dying,
Of course you are.
It could be a great spectacle. I think
it could be a terrible one as well.
Yeah, I think.
Lump on Maggie, don't feel shy. Lump on it. Come on, Maggie. The voice of unreason. Come on, Maggie.
I think the Gooners are going to do it because I think we can see too many goals.
I've got to ask Maggie with your fans hat on, and a derby day. You wake up, you've got that knot in your stomach anyway, because on the day of the game, especially on derby day, I always say, as long as you don't get beat. So would you take a draw, Maggie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll go for that. I was definitely not one of those fans that started sharing pictures of the table when Spurs were at the top and Arsenal at the bottom. I was like, don't worry, guys. We're going to mess up at some point. It's gonna settle. So I didn't take particular joy. I'd go for the 1-1. I think it might be a bit of a bad game though. I just think it might be a bit. There's a lot of pressure on both sides.
Yeah, there is.
Derby, and I just think it could be a little bit messy, a little bit frustrating.
Yeah,
Maggie, Maggie, I've got to say, I've got a page full of a hit list here. Just waiting. If Arsenal get the win, I'm going for people's necks. Trust me.
I'm deleting WhatsApp if Arsenal win.
Listen. Let me tell you, where I live, the sea is less than half a mile away. If Arsenal win, I'm going. I ain't coming back.
Reggie Perrin.
Exactly. I ain't coming back. But listen,
I'd have to ask my dad about Reggie Perrin. Too old for me.
I will tell you, on a brighter note, against Wolves in the Cup, Spurs scored a couple of goals. They created 3 or 4 very good chances, which was very refreshing. And I'm hoping they bring some of that to the game against the Gooners. Yeah.
All we ask for is a great spectacle.
That's right. I know it's the hope that kills you, right, Maggie? It just look at me. Look. It's killed me 1,000 times. Jesus.
Let's move to more positive vibes. Maggie, how did the original opportunity present itself for you to become involved with Lewes?
Yeah, so a bit of a funny story, really. A couple of months after I came down from Kilimanjaro, having done this cool thing and like really pushing on that opportunity, equality, respect, I saw this tiny little club, Lewes FC, that had decided to put its money where its mouth was and take a stance and not just wear a T-shirt and not just talk about how women are important or whatever. And they'd actually decided, to split their revenue equally between the men's side and the women's side. Now, this club is just a non-league men's club traditionally, but they took that decision because they realized that they are a sacred community asset. It's a football club. It's meant to give value to your community, but they'd missed half the community out. And so I saw them do that. And a lot of people understand that as pay parity. And we do have the same playing budgets on both sides. So the same playing budget for men and the women. But it's also that splitting the revenue so that we've got the same marketing budgets. We actually go out and encourage people to come to the games. And because otherwise you leave this like women's football over here. But if you don't invest in it, then how do people know to come? Or how do they know that you value it enough to actually show up? If your club doesn't value it, then why would Joe Blogs on the street come along and watch? So I was impressed with what they did. Our paths crossed a few times. I have this funny, tiny little story about how my first ever football game, I told you when I was just 13, I was playing illegally under somebody else's name for the Isle of Wight, where I grew up. Sorry, Isle of Wight FA.
Ringer. We love it.
So I played under somebody else's name, but my first ever game was against Lewes at the Dripping Pan at the ground.
Oh, no way.
Isle of Wight. So there was quite a nice like little sense. So because our paths are crossing, they approached me to say, would I be interested in taking on it? And up until that point, I hadn't worked in football. I'd played. I'd been kind of quite active from an advocacy, from a campaigning point of view, but I hadn't actually sat in the seat and tried to make it work. And of course, I've got my kind of good governance and anti-corruption hat on, and I was furious with how like rotten football can be. When someone's like, well, put your money where your mouth is. Yeah. I was like, okay, I've got to do it. Give it a go.
Brilliant.
We should have you running UEFA. Jesus.
Well, you could be like our sort of AC12 equivalent line of duty for football. So it will. I've got to say though, in all seriousness, what you have done is set that precedent based at the club with gender equality. It's absolutely incredible. How do you position when people come and ask you about that? I mean, it obviously takes a lot of work, but the journey, that's only just beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so the decision to split the revenue happened in 2017. I joined in 2019. So a lot of this work, I don't want to take credit for myself because I actually joined in and said, yeah, this is where I want to be. There's a lot of potential here. And don't get me wrong, there were loads of detractors. There's plenty of fans that didn't like the idea of, splitting the revenue because they thought that equality is taking something away from the men. And so it's been a constant journey. It is to this day. We still have a lot of kickback, a lot of people that don't quite get it. Right. Having said that, roll on a few years and the women's team are in the championship playing alongside Liverpool and Crystal Palace. And, so we've in some ways putting Lewes on the map on the women's side, and then on the men's side, they got promoted in the first year after equality as well. So there's like good vibes on all sides, and we're generating more sponsorship money. We've got more eyes on. Like even just the fact that I'm here today, you might not have brought me on if I was just involved in a very small non-league football team. But I think honestly, we are the future of football, and we're getting there first. And it took a small club to do it. And I think that others will join. It's just that, if no one else is going first, we'll go first. And we'll do that on all kinds of issues.
Maggie, has attendances gone up?
Yeah. So the women's attendance quadrupled in 2 seasons.
Wow. And
then the following year after, they equalized. So now we have roughly equal attendances on the men's side and the women's side.
Fantastic.
So,
Maggie, could I ask, Maggie, I was fortunate enough to spend about 21 years in New York, right? All my kids were born in New York, blah, blah, blah. They played football, and I even played with parents, like with the kids, and like it was mixed. And there was I remember the story, we like a pickup game as we called it, and men and women all involved. And our friends' parents, the mother said, "Look, stay on my side. I'm much better than my husband." She was outstanding. So this is like 20 years ago, right? So the game is so much more progressed in the States for women, but it seems to me we're on a rapid catch up. How close do you think we are to the Americans' women's game in England?
I don't actually think we're too far off. I think that the American game is very different. So the way that they are set up, it's almost in order to create a winning national team. So the leagues, and the system is extremely different. We can never replicate that. And I don't want us to replicate the US system over here because it's a franchise. So there's no promotion, relegation. My dream of getting into the Super League with Lewes FC would be shot out the window if we were in a US system where it's a closed leagues. I don't think I think sometimes we just don't know what to do about women in this country. I think there's been lots of chopping and changing at the younger levels. Like, do girls play with boys? No. Do they play against boys? Yes. Can we have girls playing in? And we've been changing the way that we're thinking about women's football in this country for a long time, and we haven't quite settled on what we think will work. But I think we're getting there. I think I'm loving seeing some British players doing really well over in the US leagues. So you've got some really good talent, and it shows that they're perfectly capable. And sometimes it seems like some of the players prefer being over in the US. So I'm curious about what it is that they like over there that we don't quite have over here.
Yeah. But I would say, like, Super Kev, because he's always insightful, unless it's about Arsenal, of course. He made the point about attendances. Now, TV viewership in the UK is going up for the women's game. I mean, I was glued to the box when Spurs women played Man City away, right? And talk about smash and grabs, unbelievable, right? Spurs won 2-1. And, I was just as into it as if it was the regular Spurs boys, right? I was up and down, my heart was racing. And I don't think I'm that different to most other football fans, So I do think there's a pace gathering for women's football in the UK, and it's just fantastic to see. It's just fabulous.
I think just like the football games are stories, and a season is a story. It's like a book with lots of chapters.
Yeah.
But if you don't know anything about the characters, and if you're kind of only reading a little bit and you don't understand who's who, then it's very difficult to get behind a team, or it's very difficult to understand the league or understand the importance of who's who. And so any kind of visibility and prominence in the deal with the BBC and Sky is going to allow people to suddenly get behind and understand who's who. And that I think that's going to be a game changer for women's football this year.
Definitely. Okay, speaking of you mentioned English players. Kev, I wanted to come to you because there's a really tasty game this weekend involving probably two of the most talked about over the last 12 months. Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice go head-to-head with their respective teams. Leeds, West Ham, always a tasty fixture, on and off.
Without a shadow of a doubt. This is a free
helicopter
game.
Affair.
This is a free helicopter game, one.
Exactly. Speaking about a bubble, Leeds really need Phillips to drag them out of this sort of mini doldrum that they're going through at the moment. A lot of Leeds fans that I've spoken to this week are slightly worried.
Yeah, and they should be, because let's be honest. After the first season, Leeds were a breath of fresh air for the Premier League.
Yep.
But just like anything, when teams start to work you out and start to scheme against you, they work you out. They scheme against you. They've got all the footage. They've got all the stats. They work on how to scheme to nullify you. And we saw at the start of the season, Calvin Phillips probably was a little bit hungover from the Euros, didn't start, and they struggled. And he's come back and they've looked better, but they haven't got that elusive win. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them, because West Ham are a decent side.
They need to rediscover their mojo. George, got to give you a bit of credit here, because I mean it was last season and earlier this season that you were championing West Ham, and you were saying about David Moyes. You've had your eye on West Ham and their sort of journey a lot. And again, midweek, look at that result in midweek. What a great cup win!
David Moyes has worked absolute magic at West Ham. They are by far the second best club in London behind Chelsea. They're way ahead of Spurs and Arsenal. When was the last time you could say that? You got to give them credit. They play with rhythm. They know their roles. They know their game plan. They're organised. They've got great shape, and they've got match winners. Right? They've got winners, and I only see one winner for this game. And I'm super impressed with West Ham, and good for them. I think it's so good for the game when a club that's not in the traditional top six does really well and gets up there, And I think West Ham could have a great season. If they're lucky with injuries, they could do really well.
Okay, back to our guest with a double team CEO hat on. The gents are doing well. They're going really well. Currently sitting pretty in second. Home game this afternoon against 9th place Hornchurch. Tell us, is the Prosecco on every home game, by the way?
Yeah, we do have the Prosecco on, although there was a shortage in Italy with the pandemic. So we weren't able to put it on tap for a while. We had to just get the bottles in. But yeah, no, the game today should be really good. I think that Hornchurch,
Yep.
I think 9th. I think they'll be up there. And it's, these leagues are big. There's 22 teams in the league, so it's quite early days.
a grind,
so we're not.
isn't it?
Again, I'm not going to get too confident about sitting pretty in second, but I'd love us to be up there towards the end of the season. Let's go for it. But I think Hornchurch will be tough today.
Yeah, Hornchurch. They're a good team, Hornchurch.
Yeah.
By a strange quirk of fate, the ladies, they have my total back in this weekend, more so than ever, because they're currently on the road, aren't they, Maggie? They're on their way to Sunderland.
Yeah,
gotta help them. Obviously, I'm a Newcastle boy, but the girls are going well, aren't they?
Yeah, we're doing okay. Well, Sunderland are unbeaten so far in the Championship, and that's it's difficult
Big
to tell how long that's going to last. I mean, they've just been newly promoted, so for them to be up there is quite. No one was expecting it, so no one really knows what to expect at the game tomorrow. Should be a good one. But we'd like to be there first. We'll take the scalp first.
And as the cycle of Hollywood Balls continues to evolve, next week's guest will be on the pitch tomorrow. It's Sunderland Charlotte Potts. So Maggie, I bet you're hoping that she cuts a bit of a sad figure on next weekend's show.
I hope she'll be really unhappy.
Oh, Pete, you're going to get some stick next week, Pete.
Well, I'm going to get if the girls do it, and because I'm a Geordie, I shared with George via WhatsApp. We had we had a question from Charlotte for next week. Not for a family show either, but it just demonstrates the rivalry. Okay.
Put your tin hat on for next week, Pete. Put your tin hat on.
My tin hat. Definitely, I'll dig it out. Kev, coming back up to you in the corner there. Rafa Benitez, Rafa the gaffer. He needs a result this weekend, but by heck, so do Norwich, don't they?
Yeah, look, it always can work out that way. After the great start that Everton had, there was a little bit of a wobble, which you can expect. There's certain injuries to key players, and Everton's depth just isn't there, Pete. It just isn't there. When you're Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, you take them out, they're your two main guys to get you goals and to get the team moving. So when they're not there, it's difficult, really difficult. But I expect them, they're at home, I expect them to get the right result because Norwich have been poor, let's be honest with you. They've been poor. And if Everton don't win, then that's going to be even more pressure on Rafa.
I was speaking to Galton yesterday, literally with his head in his hands about his beloved Norwich. We were planning our Christmas special show on Hollywood Balls. I don't know what I've let myself in for, but Galton's going to be a part of it live from the kitchen.
Has he been burning the fish and chips?
I think he's been burnt. Yeah. Let's hope he doesn't burn our Hollywood Balls turkey. Anyway, it is. Kev, I wanted to ask you as a former player, fans get carried away when signings come in, but it takes time to bed down. There's no doubting what a great signing Rondon is, but he needs a little bit of time to settle in, doesn't he?
Yeah, he needs a bit of time, and I think the pre-season, he didn't really have a pre-season, so that's always a difficult one. As players will always tell you, once you get pre-season in, that's money in the bank for you. He hasn't had that. He's trying to find his form and his fitness in games, so it's going to be difficult, but I expect him to start today, Pete.
Okay, a couple of birthday wishes of note. James Rotherham, very happy birthday to you, sir. He is my brother-in-law's best man at my sister's wedding. Work that one out. Absolutely brilliant guy. Liverpool fan. Celebrating today. Yeah, no, sorry, Kev. I'm just really struggling to find Arsenal.
I'm bombarded on this show. I'm bombarded.
And also, got to say, a very, very happy birthday to the Toon's very own supermodel. She'll kill me if I don't say hi. It's Laura White, our very own Cheryl Cole. Laura's 21 again. So enjoy the Quayside or wherever it is you're partying tonight. George, back to you because I wanted to pick this one up with you. Crystal Palace, we've been talking about Patrick Vieira in the last couple of weeks. He's made a difference. He's got a big decision to make this weekend because, as Kev highlighted last week, Edouard has come on and literally changed games for them. So does he drop Benteke and start the lad today?
Well, I don't know. It's a question of time before that happens on a permanent basis, I think, right? But Patrick Vieira has brought just a new freshness about the place. I think, you know, the first couple of games didn't go well, and everybody's so short, so impatient. Everybody's saying, "Oh, he's going to be the worst appointment as a manager." Blah blah blah. All of a sudden, now he's the best appointment as a manager. Look, managers need time, clubs need time under new management teams. The players do. I think the future bodes well for Palace, you know, I think it was a very insightful signing, Edouard. You know, I thought he was going to go to Brighton, but they didn't. They couldn't agree terms, personal terms actually. So Palace have put their hand in their pocket, and they've done well. So if he doesn't start today, he will start very soon, I think, as a regular.
Okay.
Can I just say a quick word though about Norwich?
Yeah.
I respect Norwich incredibly. They resist the temptation to go beyond their means, and they're still with us. It's so sad what's happening at Derby County, one of the biggest names in English football, right? So hats off to Norwich. They don't change their approach. They sell their top players to stay in their game. They manage them. They play good football when they can. They never park the bus. Although I think they will struggle this season, I have nothing but respect for Norwich. I must say that.
Well said. I'll take that clip out and send it to Galton. It'll help him. It'll help him feel better when he's serving his fish and chips up. Speaking about, we mentioned Palace there, George. Maggie, there's a great atmosphere that's created, and you're saying that the crowds are on the up. What's the thing? Because it's got such a great name, your place, and it's a very unique ground, isn't it?
Yeah, the ground is a dripping pan, so put that on your list, everyone. Get there. We keep on winning away day of the season, so it must be down to the fact that we're brilliant people, very welcoming. We've got great food. We also have bonfire drummers that come along, and they'll drum out the players. And we have a brass band that comes to the women's games, and they'll do like the match of the day theme tune. So there's lots of uniqueness, let's say, about it. The corporate side as well is a bit different, isn't it? Yeah, well, why would you want a corporate box? They're all the same, aren't they? We're not too far from the sea, so we've got a row of beach huts that you can rent out. So the beach huts for corporate boxes. Who else? You know, a little mini bar in there. What else do you need?
It just sounds like the 3 points, a couple of Proseccos.
And
I think we're there.
Can I come?
Listen,
you're very welcome. Come on over.
Absolutely brilliant. I can't believe the time's flying. It's a sign of a great show and obviously a great guest. We're going to go with our baller of the week, our hero of the week. As always, guests and ladies first. So have you got a footballing hero, a baller of the week for us, Maggie?
I do, but it's a baller butt.
Okay.
So I'm going to give my baller to UEFA, which is very unlike me. And that's because they have just doubled their prize money for the Women's Euros next season.
Great.
My butt is that it's still 4.7% of what the men's prize pot is. So there's still work to be done. Credit where credit's due. Get cracking.
I like that. I think we can introduce that. We can have baller of the week, but as a second option. Up top to Kev, who have you got for us?
Look, I've gone for Marcus Fours of Brentford. He scored 4 goals in the week, and any player that scores that amount of goals has to get my vote as baller of the week this week. So well done to him.
Great shout. George?
I've actually gone unusually for Thiago, Liverpool.
Yes.
I think he's shown in the last couple of games just the value he brings to the team. I think he was outstanding. He's had outstanding 2 games last weekend and during the week. And I'll give it to Thiago.
Okay, fantastic. It's that Kev's
Here we go.
Oh,
Maggie, we can do this. We have to beat him, Maggie.
Come on, Maggie. Let's go, Maggie.
Come on.
Now, listen, I've got a couple of housekeeping things to run through before we get into our DK hot sauce challenge.
Okay.
The current record holder is none other than the Dub Pistols frontman, the legend himself, Barry Ashworth, with 7 points. Now, we've got to wish him a very happy anniversary today. Him and Alona, beautiful girl. All the best to you. Still the record holder, Barry, and he's due back on the show very soon. Okay, so What else have we got? We're just
He's
going to
running scared. He's running scared.
Yeah.
Barry Ashworth, he's running scared.
Here we go. Can't believe this. Now, for those of you, I normally announce the winner of last week on the show, but Kev took it a step further this week because he was so glad that he was back in the form book. But before we hear from Kevin, can you remember, George, a guy that appears on our show? He's a huge part of it, Jordy Stato, Dave. He's been busy filming because he's been on Australian TV. Believe it or not. This is incredible. They wanted to question him about his photographic memory. If anyone wants to have a look at it, it's fascinating. There's a 4-minute clip on YouTube. David Huggan, the memory man, who can basically relay every World Cup winner from the beginning, every Australian president. It's fascinating. Here's his preview, by the way, of this weekend's big game, or as he says, how we see.
Hello there, it's Jordy Stato, Dave Huggan here from Sydney, Australia. Hope you're all well. And I'm previewing the lunchtime kickoff, the big game, Chelsea versus Manchester City. And a couple of things spring to mind. What about the 2019 League Cup final between these two teams when Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa refused to be substituted in the last minute of extra time? And Chelsea lost the penalty shootout to City. And also 7 years ago, almost to the day, Frank Lampard scored for Man City against his old club Chelsea. That was very controversial at the time. He didn't really celebrate very much. Well, what will happen this time? I think it's going to be a great game, and I hope you enjoy it. Back to Pete.
Bad news for his kids. He's got a photographic memory, isn't it? He'll remember everything they've ever done growing up.
He won't forget.
It is incredible. I mean, how does that happen? How can his poor wife? Oh my God! I mean, how does that happen, right? I mean,
yeah, there was a great question, George, on the show actually, because I watched it, and the girl who was interviewing him just said, "So, do you like? Can you?" He said, "No, it's only things that I like." And he said, "Much to my wife's chagrin, so it's football." Cricket.
I mean, for example, if maybe he cooks meals sometimes, but if his wife cooks a meal sometimes, he could probably say, on the 3rd of September 1926, that was a crap dinner you served, darling. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, how does it work, right?
Or you forgot to put a certain spice in.
Yeah, his wife must be. She's the baller of the week. His wife. I'll tell you that.
There you go. Kev, that was a great intro in. Forgotten spice. Now is the time for the spice because Kev released the video last week, and I don't know if it was more relief than bravado, but have a listen.
Jordy Pete, here's what I have to say. I hope I restored the balance and equilibrium to the show. Having all those people winning, it's time for me to get back on top. Who won, Pete? I just want to hear who won. Who won, Pete? Order is restored.
Will it be restored this weekend?
Let me hear it, Pete. Who won?
Super Kevin Campbell won. Okay. Right. Now, thanks to the video.
Listen, he does look dapper, doesn't he? Hey,
Dicky Bow Thursday, isn't it?
He should be an actor. I'm telling you.
He should. Listen, thanks to Kevin's video and DK Hot Sauce, the old competition's got a bit viral this week, so we've got numerous people involved. And we got our first girl in, which is very apt today. So Samantha Shepherd, well done. I'm rooting for you, of course. Ladies first, guests first. First up is the game straight after this show. Maggie, what have you got for us? Chelsea, Man City.
I'm going 3-1 Chelsea.
3-1 to Chelsea. George, what have you got? Much as it pains you.
Yep. For El Cashico, I'm going with Chelsea. Chelsea 2, Man City 0.
Okay, Super Kev.
I've got 2-1, Pete. 2-1 to Chelsea.
Okay, I have also got that, Kev, so you can make a note of it. But just bear in mind, Maggie, Kev writes all the scores down, just in case there's any funny business goes on.
This is much more serious than I was imagining.
Believe
Maggie,
me.
Maggie, this is my reputation on the line.
Maggie, you don't know the half of it.
I mean, some of my predictions are more like hopeful,
No. We follow the games minute by minute, right? And we check against the predictions,
Yeah,
When it goes
and the
against you,
WhatsApp
yeah.
goes.
Well.
The WhatsApp goes mad. My advice
Oh,
would be:
yeah.
don't be WhatsApping any of us during this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, in the house, back today. This cracks me up. Set his alarm to get up. Former FA director Adrian Bevington's in. We've got Jamie O'Brien, big Everton fan. Danny Kwang's in. Danny Kwang of Hot Sauce, and I have to reiterate, he doesn't win. Obviously, he's in it for the fun. Samantha Shepherd joins us, big Liverpool fan. Jace Edwards is back with us. He's had a couple of decent results. And Lee Cosgrove, who was just over the moon, Kev, that you were chatting with him on Facebook yesterday, our Man United
lad.
resident. Great lad.
Nice lad.
Okay, so Adrian's gone 1-1. Jamie has taken 2-1 to Chelsea. Danny's gone 1-1. Samantha's gone 1-0 to Chelsea. Jace has gone 2-1 to Chelsea. And Lee Cosgrove has as well. Second on the list is Man United Villa, Maggie.
I'm going 3-1 again, Man U.
3-1 to Man United. Good shout. Okay, George.
I'm going 3-0, Man U.
Okay, clean sheet for De Gea. Super Kev.
3-1 for me, Pete.
3-1. Okay. I've gone 2-0 to Man United. Adrian's gone 2-1 to Man U. Jamie 2-0 for the home side. Danny's taken a 1-1 draw. Samantha's gone 2-0 to Man United. Jason's gone 3-1 to them also. And 3-1 as well for Lee Cosgrove. Okay, Leeds West Ham. Looking forward to this one over the weekend. What have you got for us, Maggie?
I'm going 2-0 West Ham.
2-0 West Ham. Good shout. Okay, George.
I'm exactly with Maggie. 2-0 West Ham.
Super Kev.
I've gone 2-1 West Ham.
Okay, I think Leeds are at home. I think their crowd will get behind them. West Ham can be got at. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Adrian's gone 2s each. Jamie's taken 1-1 as well. Danny's gone 2-1 West Ham. Samantha's taken 1-1. Jace has taken 2-1 to Leeds, and Lee has also taken 2-1 to Leeds. Okay, very interesting game next up. Brentford going really well. Breath of fresh air, aren't they? Maggie, Brentford, Liverpool.
Okay, allow me a little bit of fantasy.
Okay.
I'm going to go 1-0 Brentford.
Fantastic. Okay, great stuff. George?
I'd love that.
I've gone for a draw, 1-1.
Okay.
I think Brentford are that good. 1-1.
Yeah, they are. And it's, it's that, we were talking what Kev said before. Leeds had that. Sheffield United had that in their first season. That element of surprise early on as well. Kev?
Yeah, Pete, I've got to go for the Red Noses on this one.
Brilliant. You love it, don't you?
I don't. You can see I love it that much, don't I? I'm gonna go 3-1 to Liverpool.
Okay. I've gone 2-0 to Liverpool. Also, Adrian has as well. He's gone 2-0 to Liverpool, as has Jamie O'Brien. Danny's gone one step further, 3-0. Samantha's gone 3-0 as well to Liverpool. Jason, staunch Everton's taken a 1-1 draw.
Love it, Jay. Love it, Jay.
And Lee has taken Liverpool to win 2-1. Okay, here we go. The game of the weekend. Hashtag North London Derby. Maggie.
I'm going 1-1.
Okay, 1-1. George.
Unprovocative.
Yep.
I think I'm going to hang myself.
Jeez.
I can't do this. If you tell my mum...
Could have YouTube knocking on the door again.
Listen, God forgive me. I don't wish to be politically inappropriate, for God's sakes. I can't do this. I just
say it, George. Say it.
Get it out in the open. Come on, we're all friends.
I can't do this. Can I hang up? I think Arsenal are going to win.
Wow. Amazing.
I think it's 2-1 to that lot.
Okay.
My heart's palpitating. I can't do this.
I'll tell you what, we'll make it easier. Kev, let's swoop over to you.
Yeah, I've gone for the same score, to be honest, George. 2-1, I have.
Yeah.
Arsenal to shade it.
Because, the biggest difference I think you find tomorrow, it won't be the defences, it'll be midfield. And
Okay.
Partey's back and he's playing well. Yeah, kills me.
I've gone 1-1. the same as Maggie. I think it'll be
Listen,
a good game.
is it too early for a gin and tonic? It's got to be 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, right? It's got to be 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yeah, somewhere, definitely.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so I took 1-1, as did Adrian. Adrian Bevington has taken ones each. Jamie O'Brien's taken 1-0 to Spurs. I don't know whether.
Come on, Jamie. Come on, Jamie.
Anyway, Danny Kwang's also taken 2-0 to Spurs. Samantha's gone 1-1. Jace has gone 1-1. And Lee has taken 2-1 to the Arsenal. Wow. It'd be very interesting to see what happens there.
That Danny's been having too much of his hot sauce.
He is a Liverpool fan.
Well, that says it all, Pete, doesn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. Loads of requests coming in. I think we're going to have to get Jordy Stato Dave on the show because people are asking for him. There's one thing, he won't need to put it in his diary. Listen, it's been an absolutely brilliant show. Maggie, best of luck this weekend for the girls and the guys. What we would like to do is invite you back on possibly our Christmas show. You can give us an update, and now you've experienced the madhouse, you may as well come and join in at the festive period. George, what have you got on this weekend?
A lot of running around with the kids. I've got a couple of meetings. There's some exciting stuff happening with the NFTs and the football app.
Art is the word.
All will be revealed. It's exciting stuff. But a lot of kids stuff, football, and I've got to do 2 contracts. I should have done them yesterday. I just didn't have the energy. Couple of video calls, non-stop.
And you'll probably watch Spurs' greatest. Some of the Spurs DVDs you've got just to get in the mood.
All of them. Could I just take a moment if I could? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
As an 8-year-old boy, and that's many years ago, I will never forget the goal Jimmy Greaves scored at White Hart Lane against Newcastle. Right.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
England's best goal scorer ever. You know. He's one of the reasons I'm a Spurs fan, and millions of others are, and we love him dearly. And what a wonderful man! God rest in peace, Jimmy. And
looking at his stats, Jimmy, for Jimmy, that he George, I didn't know he loved the debut, didn't he? Every debut he had.
Look at it. He scores on every debut. His goals versus appearances are ridiculous, better than any player today. For England, he's the 4th best top goal scorer. He played the least amount of games. He was a designated penalty taker, and England never got 1 penalty. Right? Jimmy was the best. Jimmy Greaves, what a player!
Absolute natural striker.
Fantastic, great sentiments, George. Kev, what have you got on this week?
Pete, believe it or not, I have got hardly anything on, so I could catch up with my football. Believe it or not. Yeah, brilliant. Listen, I've had a week of going to watch my son. My son's back from injury. He played. He's got no problems with his knee. Fantastic. You know what? I might even end up going to a game today. Stoke at home. So I might even end up going there. But it's going to be a great weekend. It's a great weekend. I've got a little couple of interviews to do tomorrow. And then I'm tuning into the big game.
Okay. Come on, you Spurs. Maggie, we got to do this, please, Maggie.
Come on, Arsenal. Come on.
It's like, oh, boy. I can't bear it. I'll tell you, I'm getting a drink. Come on.
I'm shouting for Lewes this weekend because I've got no hope in my side who go to Watford. Good luck to all the boys and girls who've gone down to that. They left at 6 o'clock this morning on the Mad Bus. Well done to you all. That's it for another Soccer Saturday. We'll see you next week when we have our Legend show on Thursday with Jerry Armstrong, by the way, which is going to be fantastic. Next Friday, we've got a very special guest on our own TFA show, the new manager, no less. We'll keep that a secret and announce it this week, George. And then next Saturday, it's got a Sunderland vibe. Yes, it has, just to prove that I'm not all Geordie. It's been fantastic. Maggie, thanks so much. And we'll see you all next week.